And then I'll let you. Hello, familia. How are y'all? My name is Manny Recinos, and I am here with Mr. Rick Guerrero. Rick, how are you?
Hey, everybody, living the
Hey,
dream over here.
love it. We are running the Latin Leaders Connect, and today we are so excited because we have none other than Miss Teresa Palacios Smith with us. Welcome, Teresa.
Oh my God, I'm so excited. And first of all, I'm so honored. From what I understand, this is the inaugural episode. And so it's such an honor to be here with two of my favorite people to launch this incredible opportunity for Latinos and business and all types of, organizations to learn from leaders that you're going to be having on this show. So thank you again for inviting me.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, absolutely. Whenever we came up with this idea, we weren't really sure how we were going to do it, but the one thing we were for sure about is that we wanted you to be our very first speaker.
Yeah,
Like,
I'm so honored. It really
you've
does,
been
Scott. You
impactful.
really have touched my heart. Just very
One,
touching moment for me.
We appreciate it. Well, as Rick mentioned, this was something that we've been brainstorming for a while, and we wanted a way not only to connect within, one specific industry, but really open it up to Latino leaders that wow us every day, right? Whether it's a small business story or, a CEO at a giant company, we want to share these stories and learn and be able to understand each other a little better and the lessons that we've faced. So, with that said, I really would love to just jump into it because we have some limited
yep.
time and we want to get to know you, Teresa. So, for those that don't know you and are out there, we'd love to just start with telling us a little bit about yourself and your journey into leadership.
Well, first of all, I think I'm going to start off, I'm going to go back because I've been in leadership for a while by sharing a story that was a life-changing event for me. As I always, one of the questions I know that we've got kept couple, I always felt like I was destined for leadership. But sometimes because there are no opportunities in your own house, like within your own company, you have to go outside of that to find where can I actually grow as a leader. And my role at the time was head of business development for the company Prudential Georgia Realty. Well, actually, it was Prudential Georgia Realty at the time. And I was in the head of business development for the relocation division of my company. So I felt like a really good opportunity for me to network. And y'all know about networking because we're always seeing each other at different events. For me to network and kind of connect with HR leaders was an organization that was really very well developed here in the Atlanta market. And I felt very passionate about this organization. And like any new energetic new member, because I was a new member, I decided to volunteer. And my first one was the membership committee, because that one's where I think we all probably started in membership committees, because that's where you get to meet the members, you get to network the most. And well, within 6 months, I was asked to lead another committee and then another, and then the next year another. And, that's where it begins. You find people that are passionate about leading and working with, members and really expanding the organization. And that's what I was all about. So by the fourth year, I was now on the board of directors. It was my first board position. I don't know if y'all remember your first board position, but you were so nervous that you're even at the table. So it was my first board position. And I mean, I was so scared and nervous and excited all wrapped into one. But that year was one of the best years for me because I also, as a board member, you still led different committees. And now I worked with another committee and it got recommended for a national prize because this was a chapter just like we have, right? With NAREP, I'm going to say NAREP chapter. This was a chapter of Atlanta. And the initiatives that we had put together with the committee I led had been recommended for a national award. And so, so that was very exciting. And we actually didn't win the award that year, but it came in as runner up. So the next I'll never forget. I sat down with the president of the organization. He was a leader in a big IT company here in Atlanta. And he asked me, well, what do you want to do next? Right. And I said, well, you know what? I really would love to lead this organization. I really want to be president and be considered for that. And you know what he said?
Say,
This gentleman that I so admired, that I had looked up to for so long. He said, "Well, you don't have what it takes to lead."
"Hmm,
I was so taken aback. I said, "Wait a minute." Like literally, what? It was like somebody had punched me in the stomach. It took my breath.
Oof.
I remember saying, "But I've been working my way to this. Every group that I've led is recognized, we've expanded growth members, and now even the last one was recommended for a national award. I just don't understand. What do you think? What do I need to take a course, or because I want to better myself to lead?" And he just said, "Teresa, it's just not gonna do it. You're not in HR." I think he finally came up with that, because I said, "Wait a minute. The last president wasn't in HR either. Like, he wasn't in an HR role, but he was a man." Okay. And I was like, he was not an HR role. And I don't understand what that has anything to do with it, because you've had people that have led this group before. I've served under them, that weren't directly
Mhm.
working in HR. So anyway, I
wow,
just realized it wasn't going to happen. So I went home and I cried for a week. I cried like a little girl. And that's okay, because I'll never
Well,
forget
and
this.
that's something we all have in common.
Yes.
Manny and I cry for weeks as well,
it's-
like
yeah,
little
I mean,
girls.
for a week, I cried. I mean, I was like, because I was so deflated.
yeah,
Here I was thinking, this is where I was meant to be. And someone had taken that excitement and, like a balloon, had popped it. And I'll never forget my husband, Mike, and my children, because I mean, they were dealing with me, right? Being so upset about it. And they saw the late nights I would spend after work doing the volunteer work, because you got to do required to be part of a group. And I had spent time away from them because I was so passionate about this organization. And I felt truly that this was about me being Latina, because I thought, hey, they're discriminating me because of that. And I remember my son, because this is way before it was cool to be a Latino,
yeah,
Latino. Y'all know what I'm talking about, right?
mhm,
Yeah.
And I never forget my son Jeffrey, who's always been a problem solver, saying, "Mom, well, why don't you instead go work with the Hispanic organization, who's going to appreciate who you are?" And my daughter said, "Yeah, Mom, you're going to be running the place within a year." These are like comments from my young kids, because they were young at the time. And Mike said the same thing. So I thought about it. I said, "You know what? The Georgia Hispanic Chamber of Commerce immediately came to mind." There was not a NARP chapter at the time in Atlanta, right? Y'all know the story about that. But within 6 months of joining the Chamber of Commerce as a volunteer, I was asked to join their board. Now, listen to that. Not 5 years, 6 months. And at the end of my first year, I'll never forget Sarah Gonzalez, who was the executive director of the Chamber of Commerce at that time, called me and said, "Teresa, our board has gotten together, we've discussed this, and it would be our honor if you would be able to lead our organization in the next year." So it's like your president-elect, your
Wow.
chair. It was the chair-elect position. And I I was shocked, because I didn't expect that. I was honored, and I couldn't believe that this was happening. This is where I truly believe my journey started. It was during my time as chair-elect of this organization that I really just came to my own being. And I realized, sometimes when you are not wanted someone else, well, somebody's going to see the value that you bring in the right time at the right place, right? And of
yeah,
course, y'all
And
know the
that
story,
story is so great. Yeah.
right? So again, and this organization is very well known, and I'm still a member of it in Atlanta, and I think they'd be shocked to know that this actually happened. years ago. But I really felt such a blessing to have found the chamber, because that also led me to where I found my true calling. And it started when I was the chair-elect and the CEO and president of Prudential Georgia Realty. Y'all know Dan Forsman asked me to attend a conference by an organization that was really starting. It was growing, and it was, had little roots that were spread all over the country, and it was called NARA. And he and Luis Morales and a group of realtors had launched the first NARA chapter in Gainesville, Georgia, but it had not succeeded, and it had folded within a year. So he was adamant that I go to Denver for NARUP's national convention, because he felt that I would, learn more about the organization, get energized, and see if we could start a chapter again. And so I did. I went to NARUP. I was kicking and screaming because I did not have the time. I really didn't. And how many of you've heard that from when you're asked to go somewhere? I don't have the time. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. I'm really busy. There's just no way. And that's what happened. But Dan is so adamant. You cannot say no to the man. So I finally said, okay, I will go. But again, this is going to be, I don't have time. But that was that single event, it would redefine the trajectory of my life forever. Meeting the luminaries like Gary Acosta, Ernie Reyes Jr. I don't know if you both got a chance to meet Ernie Reyes.
I did. I did.
Getting to
It's
meet
great.
both of them and hearing their impassioned narratives about the inception of NARUP stirred a fire within me, and inspired by their why, I decided to come back to Atlanta with the goal of establishing a chapter, and a chance encounter on the elevator as I was leaving headed home for the conference with the vice president of Stewart Title introduced me to another person that was an inspiration, and that's Bobby Armaz. Y'all all know Bobby Armaz.
Yep.
And James
Great guy.
Akinada. Yeah. Together, we laid the foundation for NARUP Atlanta that next week, and now recognized as one of NARUP's premier chapters. And we all have the commonality of being presidents of that chapter. And, again, when I became president of the NARUP Atlanta chapter, that's another huge milestone, because at the time, the second most inspirational person in my life came into it, and that is Juan Martinez. Juan Martinez was the first coach that NARUP had instituted. He was actually on the board of directors for NARUP, and he had had such a successful chapter in Las Vegas that they recognized that he had turned that chapter around. And at the time, we were in 2010. 2 years after the recession that took 70% of Latino real estate agents out of the market. And so, our chapter only had I think we had 24 members, of which 12 of us were the board. We were required to be there, and the others were, sponsors. So, it was that meeting with him, and that constant he would coach us every month, and he would say, you can't miss my call, because he was the first coach that coached every chapter. Now, how many chapters coaches are there? At that time, it was just one. And so again, just changing that was because I did what he said to do, and everything he said was spot on, because he really understood how to really, create programs of value. And that's what we did. And so we and our team, and I'll never forget, the individuals that Roberto Salomon was one of them, and our board, just turning that chapter around, which led me to be recommended for NARUP's national board, which again, I had no idea what a big deal that was. I had no idea what a big deal it was to get recommended to that board. And of course, In 2015, I was elected as the national president of this prestigious organization. And I still remember when I was installed in Washington, D.C., because during that meeting, during the days prior to the installation, y'all remember we go to the White House. I don't know if we're going, we used to always go to the White House and actually do a history of what, or a preview of what what is happening and important initiatives through HUD and that the White House is instituting for Latinos. So we went to the White House and I met Gino Bafari. And Gino Bafori, that's the very first time that I had met him. He was also at the CBOG, the Corporate Board of Governors meeting that year, and I was president-elect. I was not president or no, I was a chair. I was about to be president-elect of the of NAREP, and I met him at that time at the CBOG, and then of course through our conversations as I was installed, he offered me the role of a lifetime. He said, come and work for me as the head of diversity, equity, and inclusion. I said, well, do you even have a role? He goes, no, I don't have an opening. I don't even have it. There's not, we're going to start it. I'm going to make this role for you because I think we need it. I really want to recruit more agents that are Latinos and that are part of this new mainstream economy that you hear Gary Costa talk about all the time. And so Trujillo, right? I really think it's important for our brand to really, embrace DEI. And I really want you to be the one to lead it, even though I felt that it was not me that should be doing it because I didn't have an HR background. Y'all remember, circle back to that HR that made me always feel insecure about not having a background in HR. And he said, no, you're exactly the one. You have real estate experience. You've been a realtor. You've led business development, relocation. You've worked with CEOs. You've worked with first-time home buyers. You've worked with HUD accounts. You are just the person to run our organization. And then when he was elevated to CEO of Home Service America, he said, you're coming with me. So that's my leadership journey. It's not over by any means, but I feel like all of these great organizations and opportunities led me to where I am today. And just quickly, I want to say today I spoke back home because Berkshire Hathaway Home Services Georgia Properties had their elite Berkshire Hathaway, their elite awards luncheon or breakfast. It was a breakfast. And I was speaking there. So it's like an amazing journey where I am now, in this C-suite position that I would have never gotten had I not stepped into the shoes of leadership.
That is an amazing leadership origin story for sure. I love you mentioned that hurdle you had, right? It's amazing because first it shows us you had that support system, but second, it truly, and I think you're right, it is, if that's, when you felt like that was that calling to leadership, it sounds like it's one of the first times at that level you had to advocate for yourself.
You do. And that's something else.
That's a game changer.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
So one of the things you mentioned in your convo, there's a lot of great things you mentioned, but you mentioned Ernie Reyes, and I remember meeting Ernie, and I remember him speaking on the stage, and he had this famous quote, and I'm probably going to butcher it, so hopefully you can help me say it and remember it. But what was he saying? If it's not you, then who?
You.
If it's not now, then when? Right? You
Right.
have all the skill set, all the ability like anybody else, and that's all I remember.
Right. No, and with Ernie Reyes, I'll never forget because he was sitting at the land. What's the name of the hotel that not the Ritz-Carlton, but where I was actually inducted, the landmark, it starts with an L. Now I forgot it. But we were sitting in that small bar, which we all go after and hang out and and he was sitting and talking in a big chair. And I went up to tell him I was so proud. I was now on the board and that I just was I told him about my first initial meeting him in Denver at that conference. And I said, I really would love one day to be president of this organization. And that's what I'm aspiring to do. And he goes, if not now, when? If not you, who? You're ready. You go, mijita. You run for it because you're ready. And that's gave me that confidence to say, I'm going to go for this because he said I was ready. And so he felt like I could do this. And that made me feel like I could do it too.
Love that. I love that. You mentioned too the just women in business, right? Latinas in business and how that was portrayed, not only as a Latina, but also as a woman. That is one thing we've chatted about privately before. I've heard you speak on it. And for all intents and purposes with our audience, I'd love to hear, what strategies maybe you found effective while navigating the unique challenges that women face in business, in real estate, in corporate America. What tidbits would you have there?
Well, that's always such a great question because, yesterday, as I said, attended the National Diversity Council Women's Summit. And I will tell you, one of our questions was based on health, right? On how do we maintain mental health and also take time for ourselves when we're pulled in so many directions. And for women, it's even extraordinarily more difficult because not only do we, in many cases, especially, women in real estate, you are on 24/7. It's really difficult to turn it off. It is a great career because you are able to not have a 9 to 5 time frame. Like it doesn't limit you there. It's a great career because you are also not limited to the amount of money that you can make, right? It's actually you work, and you'll work hard and you will get you can earn a great living in the career. But the issues are that the things that affect us never change, and that's motherhood and the guilt that we have of leaving our children, when they need us, right? There's guilt because, oh my God, I can't make it to the soccer game because I've got this client who wants to go see this house right this very moment, and I can't do it. Or, you have to stay after for a contract, or, you've got to not only navigate all of these essential things of picking up your kids from their different activities, taking them to them, but also doctor's appointments, medical appointments, that all falls on you for the most part. Also, the household chores still fall on you for the most part. Although that's kind of changed a lot. And I will tell you, since I, became so really understanding that you need help, you ask for it. Just do it. I mean, if you have to pay for someone to come and clean your house, you don't have to do it. I mean, that was always a struggle for me because I love to have a clean environment, and I feel like no one can clean better than me, and it's still true. But I don't have the time for that. So why not pay somebody to take that stress away and have them come clean my house once a week, right? So
Leverage. Yeah.
little things like that are the things the strategies I believe, let the things, that somebody else can do for you that are minimal. It's not going to cost you a lot on armor, but it's going to bring you satisfaction, health, it's going to bring time with your kids. That's another one. That's a big one. The second one I'm going to say is you really need to tune in when you're home, you know, when you can, right? The phone, I love. I love this thing. See, I got it right next to me, but at the same time, it actually can deter from personal relationships. It can deter from that real remember we used to have quality time with our kids because we're at home now, that takes away from that quality time. It also affects us sometimes emotionally because we see what others are doing and we're like, "Oh, I'm not doing that," or "I'm not." Take time to decompress. That's really important. And spend the time with your family because, as you know, I lost my husband back in November. And I thought that would never, I thought we would grow old together. And I miss him every day and not having or seeing him. And I would have never imagined that. And sometimes I regret having to take that travel that I could have waited on, and said, I'm going to stay home or come day early because I'm going to fear of missing out on something that it doesn't matter. So that's another, advice that I give. And the third one is just sometimes you have to say no. Just say, no, I can't do that. Or no, I can't take that client because, in the end, they're really, not interested in doing business the way that I do business. And the way, I have to value my belief system and my, mission and honor that over something that's just going to cost me a lot of headache. So sometimes we have to break away from those bad relationships to be able to go move forward in our lives. And I think that's another advice that I would give.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's something that I think we've all spoken about together separately, the three of us, about saying no. Like we can't all be everything to everybody all the time.
Yeah.
And the three of us all struggle with, being asked to be a part of certain initiatives
And
or
you want
projects or
to do it
boards or
so badly,
we
right?
wanted to, yeah,
Because we don't
yeah,
want to miss out. But at the same time, hey, there's another opportunity, and it's okay
yep.
because they're gonna come. They always come,
But you're right.
right?
And when we
And
talk
and
about
that's a
it in
good
this
that's a
way,
big lesson itself. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. But you're right. The way we talk about it, even and as men, when we listen, right? And that's why we wanted to ask that question is it's then compounded in a way different form when you are a woman, right? And especially when you are in these leadership roles, you have to, sounds like from your advice, you have to find your ground, right? You have to find that support. You have to find ways to keep yourself in it, right? Mentally, physically, and be able to have and have the ability to say no to opportunities that will keep you away from being who you are. Yeah.
And take
It's
time sometimes to yourself too,
Yeah.
because you're constantly being, pushed or barraged in different ways, especially in the home life and during COVID, even worse, right? That you do need to take time to do something that you enjoy. Not that your kids enjoy, not that your husband enjoys, but that you enjoy. Oh, I'm going to go for a walk to, look at nature because I enjoy that. And that gives me a lot of peace and mental,
Mhm.
I can come back refreshed.
Yep. Well, we have two questions left, and we appreciate your time today. These questions are kind of, we can kind of combine them. It's what have you read that have been impactful to you as a leader? And then the addition would be who have been some of the people that have been your biggest inspirations? So I know you mentioned Dan earlier has been an inspiration. So
Well, as far as books, I'm going to be very, very transparent. I hate reading. It is my I struggle with it, and I finally realized that I actually am, have issues with I'm dyslexic in a way that it's not with the letters, but there's another form of dyslexia where things don't gel in your brain when you're reading. And for me, I struggled in high school, I struggled in college with things that you normally would, oh, I got that. I'm like, God, really? That takes me a long time to figure out. So I
I'm the
don't
same
love
way.
books.
Yeah.
I don't love
Yeah.
them, but I do love Audible and I love Blinkist. And those are great,
Oh my gosh, Blinkist is amazing. Yeah.
those are great resources. But there is a book I'm going to recommend to everyone that actually our CEO, Gino, it's really kind of business changing, all right? And that's the four disciplines of execution. That book really talks about how you can change the trajectory of your business by concentrating on wildly important goals that match the things that you want to accomplish because you're targeted on 3 to 5, and that's it.
Hmm.
And those three goals, if you put them in place by creating excitement over it, by creating competition within your company and your teams, by creating a day, a day, X to Y by when, a timeline of when you're going to accomplish those goals really get you to the finish line and will grow your business exponentially. And so that book to me is a great one. And I also love Lean In. So Lean In is a book
Heard of that
as
one.
well that I really enjoyed reading because it's from a female perspective of business and by, what challenges the COO of Facebook had when Sheryl Sandberg, when she took on the role, she lost her husband as well. So all these things kind of combine, I kind of connected with that book about, business and what you need to do and mentors and all that. So it was really a really good book. So Lean In is another one that I really like.
Awesome. I wrote both those down. I'm going to check them out. I'm always looking for a good listen. I can't read as well. I have to
Now,
listen.
40X is difficult to read and listen. I mean, it is a tough book, but its principles, if you look at YouTube and see the summary of the concept, because like I said, Rick, that's when and Gino does a beautiful, if you ever want a master class on it, he's amazing. He will do it for you. He loves doing it. So, okay.
I love it. I love it. And as far as kind of individuals that stand out, are there any other individuals that inspire you?
Well, there are so many people that inspire me. I've got to say my family, obviously. You
Yeah.
heard their story of how they inspired me to become who I am today. They really like pushed me to see that I was what hey, your mom, you're a shining star. You just need to let where somebody else is going to see their light instead of find that you're too bright for them. So that was one. God,
I love
obviously.
that.
Exactly. Yeah. So inspires me, but I also, and I just saw Oprah Winfrey. I listened to her a lot. Number one, she's another person that inspires me from
She's
if you're
wonderful.
only because Oprah's from Mississippi. Actually met
Oh,
her personally. Yeah, she grew up in Mississippi. A lot of people don't know that.
didn't know that.
And she
Yeah.
does right now, she's at a stage in her life where it's all about spirituality, and it's not, she gives lessons about not about financial rewards, but about spiritual rewards and how the advice that she's it's amazing. So Oprah Winfrey, somebody I've always been inspired by. But people that I actually connect with, Juan Martinez, y'all know that man changed my life because he's the one that recommended me to NARA, where it then you know, developed into where I am today. Kathy Connolly is still the chief operating officer for Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, Georgia Properties, and she's the first person that hired me in the role of where I had no experience because I had sold real estate, I had no experience in relocation and business development. That was not what I did, but she gave me my first chance. And she's to this day, she's one of my closest friends, but she was my boss. But I learned how to lead people by her because she was not one of those people that kind of looked over your shoulder. She let me be me and let me go out and get business. And as long as I was successful at doing that, she didn't care how I did it. And I love that kind of leadership. So Kathy Connolly is one. Jan Baker, who actually brought me into the company for the very first time, is somebody else. Barb Adamman, she's since retired. And another person that you go to when you first start in the business and you don't have a clue what you're doing. And she just gave you the answer to everything. She knew every answer. She was and she was so easygoing that even the things that she would say, well, tomorrow's another day. And she would say, like, you're not dying. So it's just money. That's all. If it doesn't affect your health, then don't worry about it. Things that, that you kind of struggle with. She was always there to say, it's okay. Y'all know I love Gary Acosta. He's amazing. And I already mentioned him as well. Frances Martinez Myers, Carmen Mercado, Rebecca Gallardo.
Oh,
Those
Carmen's
four
wonderful.
women were in advance of me at NARUP. They were three women that are very different in their leadership styles, but that impacted me because I saw myself in them. I saw these women that were like, you know, presidents of NARUP, and I wanted to be there. And so I, you know, and I saw that they were there. And so they inspired me. God, they're so, I could spend hours, and I know I'm going to be leaving someone out because I'm inspired by every woman that I have on my show on Women Who Lead. So I'm going to give a plug to that because we have women, amazing women from NAREP chapter presidents that, you know, lead from from our own companies that are in leadership roles, that are CEOs of their own companies, that franchise owners that just are kicking it. It's just so many people that inspire me, including you two. So there you go. I'll end with that.
I, I I think the biggest takeaway from there is if you're striving to become a successful leader in any industry, you can't do it on your own. You need to get help from others. You need to lean on others. You need to pick people's brains. And thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for sharing with us. Before we wrap it up, Manny, I'm going to throw an audible out here. Hopefully, I don't not too much of a curveball, but I thought it'd be nice if you and I, Manny, shared a personal story about Teresa, and I'll go first. So that way you can kind of think it over. But, to me, one of the things that touches me the most is if I teach somebody how to do something and then they go out and execute and they're like, Rick, thanks for showing me how to do this. So when I first joined NAREP, I remember my very first conference in DC. And like Vanessa said, as a new board member, you're scared, you're nervous, like you don't know anybody. So I was at the first conference in DC at the Ritz-Carlton, just like in the corner, and didn't know a single person. And Vanessa came up, put her arm out and said, walk with me. And she introduced me to everybody. And this is back in the day before NAREP was what it is now. Like the majority of people are there are owners of mortgage companies, are like high level executives. And I was terrified because I was brand new to the industry, didn't know anything or anybody. And I'm meeting like somebody that runs a multi-million-dollar company. And being introduced to them by Teresa, like they were just human and they were just friendly and nice. And she did such a great job of breaking the ice and making me feel comfortable in that new environment. Fast forward, 12 years later, I now meet people that it's their very first conference. And I say, you got to meet my friend Teresa. And I'll call her and I'll text her. I'll say, where are you? You got to come meet this new person. So I do that because Teresa did it to me, made me feel comfortable. And now I try to do that to others to make them feel comfortable. So Teresa, thank you for being amazing. And Monday, there's some more people.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you so much. And I don't even remember that, but that really, again, y'all are just going to make me cry today. I mean,
Now, I mean, I'll tell you, I mean, you're absolutely right. That is one of the incredible superpowers that is you carry. But I'll say, I think one of the things I've definitely seen and just keep feeling from you is you come from a place of abundance. You pour love into those. You support those around you. You want to uplift people with you. And when you meet those leaders, they stick with you and then you become friends. And here we are, our first guest, and just grateful that you've always supported us and you are here for us. So
oh, Manny,
thank
thank
you.
you so much. Again, Rick, y'all have really, this has been such a special moment. And I really appreciate the fact that you thought of me. And again, it's just such an honor. Who would have thought, right? Way back when.
Wild. It's a wild ride. Well, thank you again, Teresa. We are so grateful. Rick, with that, we are excited to do
It's a
more
wrap.
videos. Yep, it's a wrap. Keep on looking out for some information on the Latin Leaders Connect. And Teresa, we will make sure we include some info as well, because that is the point of this. It is to make sure that others can find and connect with those that we bring onto the platform. So we're excited for all that to come. So
I can't wait so I can, share it
yes,
with everyone. Thank you,
yes.
everyone.
All right.
Awesome.
Ciao, amigos.
Nos vemos. Adiós, familia.